Hello, everybody. My name is Jimmy Smith, and welcome to another Wine with Jimmy session on understanding the Mosel and Riesling for the WSET Level 3 in Wine Certificate. This is remarkably useful for those of you preparing for your WSET Level 3 examination. It includes a wonderful section on the maps of Germany and also the Mosel, of course. We'll look at a little Google Earth video, so you'll get an idea and a feel for the area. Talk about the viticulture. We have an infographic on Riesling, and we'll help you go through everything you need to know. Plus, at the end, a very important working written question, which will give you an idea of the kind of things that WSET may ask in the examination, so you can be prepared and structure your answers correctly. Here is a wonderful holding picture of the Velen and Sonnenhöhe. So that is Velen on the right of this picture. These are the wonderful steep south-facing slaty slopes of the Mosel, which are wonderful and majestic and romantic and just lovely. There is the sundial on the left-hand side, which is very famous at the Velen and Sonnenhöhe, Sonnenhöhe meaning sundial. Those of you who don't know me, I am at Wine with Jimmy on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. I own West London Wine School, South London Wine School here in London, the United Kingdom, and also a wine bar called Streatham Winehouse at the bottom of that screen. So where are we looking at? So this is the southwest of Germany. This is the Mosel Riesling. It's a cold continental climate here. Of course, you have a quite good sunny summers, but you have these quite bitterly cold winters in these regions. Summers can be wet, however, but rain starts to decrease actually towards autumn with these wonderfully long autumnal sunny days. There's good luminosity in this area, good amount of sunlight in Germany due to its latitude. But it's still quite cool, so it's a long, cool growing season that ensures that the grapes obtain their ripeness, and also the acidities are kept within the grape. So Riesling famously with that very bright and intensive acidity. But there is moisture, of course there is. There's rivers and tributaries. There's the Mosel, of course, the river that we're looking at. And there is moisture due to rainfall. So you will find that botrytis is possible here. So noble rot is a commonality across all the regions in the southwest of Germany. And you will find, therefore, sweet wines being produced. Just to give you the locations just here, I'll use the pointer here, but we have places like the Rheingau just here, which is one we'll do on a separate video for Germany. We have Nahe, the Rheinhessen, Pfalz, and then places like Baden, which are all areas that you will need to know in your Level 3 certificate, but we're just focusing on the Mosel on this one. So this is the Middle Mosel, the Mittel Mosel. So this is possibly the most famous part, as it includes very famous cities such as Piesport, Bernkastel, and then also a wonderful town called Velen. So you can see that the River Mosel is a wonderfully meandering river as it finds its way to the Rhine. Yes, it's carved out this beautiful landscape due to this meandering river. So littered along the riverside is a wonderful amount of gorgeous Germanic towns and villages and cities, including these ones here, which are areas you need to know. So down in the southern area, you'll see here, actually below this, and I'm going to scribble this down so you're well aware of this, there are actually two rivers that also run into the Mosel, and these rivers are called the Saar and the Ruwer. So that's off the bottom of this map. So the Saar and the Ruwer, which are today parts of the Mosel, they used to historically be different parts, but they are parts of the Mosel. They run into it, and then this river runs up this way, as you can see here. We have Piesport, this gorgeous city down in the southern section, and I've identified here, it's not actually a need to know, that's why it's not bolded here, but Goldtropfen is the famous real high-end vineyard here north of Piesport. Following that along, we go all the way to Bernkastel, which is just this area here, just in your books listed as Bernkastel. Famous vineyards like Badstube here, Ley is identified. You don't need to know those, but I put them just for good measure. And then Himmelreich, very close to that around the town of Grach. But then we come up to Velen, which was actually in the first picture, and then the Sonnenhöhe, the sundial vineyard. All of these share quite a few things in common. They are on steep slopes, very steep slopes, which must be hand harvested. They are on slate, lots of variants of slate, but mainly you just need to know that they're on slate, which is well draining and heat retentive. So it's very good for viticulture in this landscape. And most of them are facing south. Goldtropfen is sort of south-southwest. Velen is southwest. Bernkastel is more westerly, but there are some southerly facing ones as well. So quite an important area, of course. So of course it's along the river Mosel. Riesling is the only grape variety here permitted for Grosser Gewächs. That will be actually covered on a separate presentation. These are the classifications and labeling terms of Germany. We'll go through on a separate one when we talk about the Rheingau. But Grosser Gewächs are the dry wines of Germany's top regions, and Riesling is the only one permitted here. Riesling's by far the most important grape variety, and it tends to be, the Rieslings of this area tend to be more kind of lighter, lower in alcohol, and more higher in acidity. A lot of Cabernet is produced here, as that's kind of the category for those lighter, lower alcohol, fresher acidity styles. Okay, so that's the middle Mosel. Let's have a quick look at a video for you. Now, this is, in fact, a fairly big video, but we're only going to see a part of it. So I just need to rush ahead here to somewhere about here we go. I think about here is what we need. Yeah, here we go. Perfect. So here we're looking at Germany. We are going to go down to the southwest, of course, and we are going down to our Mosel area. So there you can see that wonderful meandering river of the Mosel. We're going to the middle Mosel, so past Bernkastel first. There is the town of Bernkastel just to our left there, and we're looking at that south-facing slope. So these are Bernkastel Allee, Badstube, and as you come up here, we're going to come towards the Sonnenhöhe vineyard. On the left now is Velen and the bridge that connects it to these wonderful sites here. So these are the excellent steep south-facing slate slopes of the middle Mosel, of Velen and Sonnenhöhe, making some of the most complex Rieslings that can be long-lived in this area. So viticulture here, as I've already mentioned, and we'll go through again, these are on steep slopes, but they are guillotrained, but quite high guillotrains, and facing south is the most common for the most premium wines here. But they will be staked, and they'll be trained quite high. I think we'll see that on a separate point coming up in a second. Here we are. So high canopy management, so a good high training. And this, it's not like a pergola, but you know, they're high trained to allow more ripeness, capturing that all-important sunshine, but also good air circulation, because of course moisture can be quite intensive around this area. So good air circulation and then good ripeness capability due to the canopy management here. The geology, as I've mentioned several times, is slate, a metamorphic rock derived here from granite, and that maximizes heat. It's a nice big structural mass of a rock, and that absorbs the heat and then radiates that off into the vineyards, making a sort of longer growing season. There is great drainage. As a topsoil, it's very loose, so the rainfall really drains quite well through this. And of course, it's relatively low in nutrients, which restricts yields, which mean higher quality. The river itself, it's not the widest of rivers. It's certainly not as wide as the Rhine, where our Rheingau district is, but it still offers good ripening, and that is through reflection of light onto the vineyard, certainly those, of course, close to it. And Velen and Sonnenhöhe that we just saw would be one of those. Also, good air circulation would come through from the river, and that would mitigate any frost issues as well. There will be frosts, of course, but it may minimize those. And of course, the vineyards will have to be hand worked. Often people are pulled through on pulley systems. There are almost like these kind of monorail systems to move grapes around and equipment and so on. It's quite labor intensive. Another reason why the wines are quite premium in this area. The Riesling grape variety, I'm not sure why that's done that, but let's go to this one. Riesling in the vineyard. We're going to go through the vineyard, in the winery, and then we'll go into what it's like as a style. So Riesling as a grape variety is very well suited to this landscape. It's very cold hardy. So it's got a nice hard wood as a trunk and as canes, and this means that it is quite resistant to that cold conditions that can be in play. And there's the cold winters. A lot of vines do not survive in such cold continental zones due to the fact that they won't survive the winters, but Riesling is very, very tolerant of that, so ideally suited here. Another thing why it's quite good is it's late budding. So spring frosts, which can be common, are actually mitigated here due to the lateness of the budding. But of course, they will try and do many canopy management, like we mentioned, to actually protect against frost as well. And it's a kind of a mid to late ripening variety, depending really on the kind of philosophy of the winemaking and grape growing here, because you can pick early, on time, and late, and with botrytis, and with frozen berries. There are many different expressions that you can get from Riesling. So it really, for the best Rieslings, you need to be on the best sites. They are steep, south-facing in the Mosel, as we've mentioned, and we just looked at a video of one of those. It's able to have such a protracted and long harvest due to the fact we have these wonderfully high acidities. It's evolved to actually maintain its acidities over a long period of time. So you can have these strategic harvests. You can pick on time, you can pick a late harvest, you can pick botrytis, and it still maintains its acidities to balance the complexities or the sugar levels potentially of these wines. So wonderfully maintaining of acidities. So in the winery, WSET quite like you to understand how aromatic grape varieties such as Riesling are treated in winery conditions. And this may be things like Gewürztraminer as well, things like Torrontés as well. They really are delicate wines, but with good aromatics. So let's talk through what needs to happen. So we'll need to handle the grapes very, very carefully. So they will be hand harvested, placed in shallow baskets, so there wouldn't be any premature pressure or fermentations. And quite a lot of selection is done in the vineyard as well as in the winery. And this is to eliminate any problem fruit, anything that may have had a bit of rot or mildew, or anything like foreign bodies that may be found there. Sulfur dioxide will be carefully used and monitored throughout most of Riesling's process, that is with machinery and the wine itself, as an antiseptic and an antioxidant. It's very common to have a fair bit of sulfur dioxide used to protect Riesling's very sort of key freshness. Got to remember that Germany was really the center of the modern movement of clean fermented wines, Germany and Austria combined. Whole bunch pressing is common, and that is ideal to have structured fruit, no splitting, and this maintains, once again, more freshness again. So when it's pressed, the juice is then taken off immediately and then goes through fermentation in inert conditions. Normally, that creates fresher juice. Skin contact is very uncommon here, and that means there is no tannic extraction or minimal tannic extraction. So it's very clean and pure juice that comes out. And of course, stainless steel or concrete are commonly used, but stainless steel is the norm these days, temperature controlled and low temperatures as well. And I think that will be your next point here. Cool and long, low temperature fermentations enable more primary fruit flavors. For the most part, most people agree this will give you more kind of brightness and freshness across the board. And of course, with Riesling in the winery, dry to sweet examples will be produced, and that can be a winemaking decision, of course. So a few other things, though. Malolactic fermentation or conversion tends to be avoided. And really, that is to protect its aromatics more than anything. So we don't tend to find that. And it's blocked by use of sulfur dioxide immediately after the wine is made. Lees contact may be an issue, may be an option here, certainly to give more roundness and texture. And you'll see this quite a lot for the drier examples of Rieslings, the grosser Gewach styles, your sort of premium, dry, almost Grand Cru expressions. And that will give texture, moreover. maybe some acidity balance, that's just to give a counterpoint to the acidity, and potentially some aroma, but really I'd say least contact for Rieslings only tend to be up to a year, so aromas and flavors tend to be not common. It's more acidity balance and texture for the Riesling styles here. It's normally as a single variety in Germany. It's very rare to find it blended like it can be in other parts of the world, but it does tend to be a single varietal here. It may be different sites of the same variety, but a single varietal is the way forward. So the variety, of course, is as follows. So dry to sweet, high in acidity. Alcohol levels can be various depending on the amount of fermentation. And you tend to find in younger Rieslings a lemon, lime, and apple characteristic. But when there's more sugar involved, please do note that you can find things like mango. You can find things like melon. There can be tropical elements, and even peach will come through. It all depends on that sugar note. Floral notes, very white flower, jasmine, white blossom, apple blossom, sometimes chamomile come through on Riesling. So floral notes can be found, a bit more common on German Rieslings than Alsatian Rieslings. And then we find honey, depending on the amount of sugar, or grape as well. It's quite common. And then with age, its volatile compounds come out with its age. That bottle age will give it kerosene, oil, petrol, waxy characteristics, beeswax, pine nut, pistachio come through with a bit of age, and they are quite wonderful compounds, and great age Rieslings can be absolutely spellbindingly wonderful. So really that's the Riesling variety. I don't need to go through too much more information about it. We do have another advanced version of just the Riesling grape on the videos if you'd like to look at more details about its history and also its ampelography and etymology and so on. But this is all what you need to know for level 3. So as ever, we pop at the end of this a partial written question, which we work through together. This is in order to help you understand what they may ask and how to structure your answers. Sometimes the questions are quite short, some of them are long. You'll see this starts with a shorter question. I'll give you a label here. This Riesling is from Piesport in the Mosel. We know that because it's from Piesporter, as it says on the label. When you put the ER on the end on a German label, that means belonging to. Name 2 other important villages, towns, or cities for Riesling in the Mosel. Now, there are many, but the ones that were mentioned were these 2, Bernkastel, or you can put Bernkastel-Kues or Velen. They're the 2 which you will need to know. And please don't make it complex. If you are German and if you've been here many times, of course, you can take your pick. But if you are really just studying this to get through this level 3 certificate, which is challenging, please just remember the ones you need to know, which are highlighted in your textbook: Bernkastel, Piesport, and Velen. State and describe the climate of this wine, or where this wine is from. It is cool continental, with a long, cool growing season where summers can be wet, but rain decreases into autumn with long autumnal sunny days. So we're giving a bit of information around the climate and weather patterns there for 4 marks. If it says just 2 marks, it will normally just say state the climate for 2 marks, and you'll put cool continental. But when it says state and describe, you do need to go into more information about the area. You need to give a bit more context in order to get the marks, like it is on this slide here. This is one of the most premium wines of the Mosel Riesling region. What conditions in the vineyard account for this? So this is vineyard only. Okay, so steep, southwest, facing slopes composed of slate. That's already 3 marks that enable better ripening due to heat retention and better drainage. Vines will be pruned tall with dense canopy management to ensure better ripening. Lower yields through older vines and extensive root systems also mean more premium and concentrated wines as a result. That answer there is really 8 marks worth. So that's quite a lot, but I've given you a bit more than you'll actually need, so you know you can write a bit more about that. You are looking to produce a wine that is as clean and fresh as possible. As a winemaker, state and describe 4 conditions you would employ to obtain this style. This is actually talking about Riesling, but you can talk about, of course, anything really as an aromatic. So grapes will need to be handled carefully with heavy selection to eliminate any problem fruit or foreign bodies. Okay, that's to make it as clean as possible. Number 2, sulfur dioxide, the antioxidant that it is, and the antiseptic, will be carefully used and monitored as an antioxidant and antiseptic. Really, the antioxidant here is the important one. It is actually a reason why in some German Rieslings, which are young but destined for older age, if you open them up, you'll get a smell of excessive minerality or sulfur, the reductive note, which was based on sulfur, but it will blow off. So reduction doesn't always stay. It will blow off with a bit of oxidation and good breathing, but it can be a little bit off-putting in the early stages if you're not too sure what it is, because it's quite a strong sulfurous smell. Whole bunch pressing will be used to ensure cleaner juice. We talked about that earlier as well. Skin contact would be avoided to ensure cleaner juice as well. So that's to mitigate any tannic extraction, which would actually take away from that freshness and cleanliness. Now that's 4 marks, 4 things, which will give you the 8 marks, but I'm going to put in a couple of others you can have here, which most students would immediately put down this one first. Inert vessels, please put like stainless steel or cement, used for reductive winemaking without oxygen, basically, in that instance. Number 6, cool and long temperatures enable more primary flavors. So that's not to overheat the fermentation must to create more volatile compounds, but really to protect its acidities and its brightness and its primary floral fruity compounds. So that's another option you may want to pick there. So I hope you have found this useful. This is only one of our German videos. There will be many more coming, but this is really just looking at the Riesling grape variety and the Mosel region. We will be looking at Rheingau and the others in separate videos, plus the grading system of German wine. As ever, please pop in any comments or questions below this video on YouTube, or get in touch with me at Wine with Jimmy on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. West London Wine, South London Wine are my 2 wine schools in London, United Kingdom, and Streatham Winehouse is my bar in London, United Kingdom. Next time you're in London, please come and see us for a class, a glass, or a bottle of wine. It'll be great to see you. I've been Jimmy Smith. Thank you so much for your time. Goodbye.